Hello again, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please know, and I'll say this once again and share it with all of you, I adore and feel so happy when you all interact with us here and write your comments, ask your questions live while we're on here on Source Radio Network. So happy to be here with all of you. So tonight's topic, I did already start sharing some statistics regarding chlamydia and the symptoms that tend to affect men and women with regards to reproductive system health, how it affects the reproductive system, some of the symptoms that they feel as well. And so a lot of the questions that have come in have been regarding that. I will be touching upon, for example, also gonorrhea, how it affects both men and women, and also the issues of pelvic inflammatory disease. So let me first also say good evening. Hello, Suzanne. Hello, thank you for joining us. Hello, Leroy. Hello, Andrea once again. Clarissa, Rock. So happy to have you all here with us. Yes, I have Kathy coming on. Oh my God!
Hello, Dr. Julissa.
Hello, beautiful. I'm so happy to have you here with me.
I am excited to be here, and hello, of course, Source Nation. You're watching SRN Live Television with Dr. Julissa Hernandez, and of course, we're here on Healthy Living. It's exciting to be with you. Of course, I see how beautiful it is in New York City. Beautiful.
Yes, transmitting from an amazing look. I just have to show you this. This is I'm by the creek, uh, near my home here. This is where the rowing teams in the area and kayaking happens, and I tend to sometimes do my yoga here by the water as well. And we're going to see some people exercising and doing all that healthy stuff behind me. So what better to show all that off on Healthy Living?
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Source Nation, you're watching live right here on SRN Live Television with Dr. Julissa Hernandez. And tonight's show here on Healthy Living, of course, we are going to have a great conversation because we actually, Dr. Julissa, had a listener to write into the station asking us to speak about STDs and fertility. I know that in your book, of course, your brand new book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, you have a section here in reference to that. So if you don't mind, I would love for you first to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into tonight's conversation, if you will.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me once again, Kathy. Source Radio family, hello. Facebook family, hello. All of you beautiful souls out there. I'm Dr. Julissa Hernandez, board certified naturopathic doctor, practicing now for 23 years. I'm an international speaker of natural medicine, teacher of natural medicine, and public figure, and here as a television and radio personality, ready to support all of you on your health journeys. Thank you so much for having me, Kathy. I'm honored to be a part of the Source Radio family.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into tonight's conversation and really give Source Nation and everyone watching here on SRN Live Television and Healthy Living some information about STDs and fertility. So if you don't mind, Dr. Julissa, I want to go ahead and read a little bit. Is that okay?
Please do. Yes, no worries. Yes.
Awesome. So you stated here, you said sexually transmitted diseases, which are known as STDs, are very prevalent in today's day and age. Now, apart from the fact that they can be traumatizing, for most STDs are a factor to consider if a couple is having problems conceiving a child. Not only that, anyone who has been infected also knows having a sexually transmitted disease is a health problem. Now, let's talk about that. Understanding if the woman is ready to conceive, and let's say that she goes and she has all of her doctor's appointments, and they've taken blood tests, they've done everything that they needed to do, and they've come back and told her that they have discovered that she has STD. What happens at that point?
The normal approach through conventional and allopathic medicine is to give either an antibiotic, some sort of chemical medication, and so on. The challenge is that we're bringing chemicals into the body that need to be filtered, obviously, through the chemical plant of the body, which is the liver. And that liver being the filter of fat, filter of blood, and the filter of hormones, we actually cause more challenges and more hormonal imbalances when intaking drugs like that overload the liver. Do know it's important for people to take into account that sexually transmitted diseases can be prevented. So we're talking about preventable issues. And after it's already happened, then let's work on that. Let's work on helping the reproductive system heal, correct scarring, and so on. And I'll share some of that information. But that's normally the approach that is taken. But there are ways to help the body overcome those in a natural way.
Okay. Great information. Let's go on, because you mentioned a couple of the STDs here that I am familiar with. Didn't know the great cause it would have in fertility. Now, the first one that you mentioned was chlamydia. Let's talk to the family one, what chlamydia is and how does this affect the conception?
Well, chlamydia is one of those specific preventable STDs that tend to cause PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, and most definitely is known to be one of those causes of infertility. Challenge is that when a woman does not treat it in time, or a man, because obviously a man can get chlamydia as well, and we're talking about infertility in both men and women, cannot rule them out, and I talk about men's health in general as well here. But if it's left untreated, then about 10 to 15% of women with chlamydia develop that very painful pelvic inflammatory disease, according to the CDC.
Okay.
So the challenge is it needs to be taken care of. We're talking about then affecting the fallopian tubes. So if there are women out there that are having challenges with blocked fallopian tubes, having challenges with the egg traveling to its destination, consider there may have been some underlying infection there, and it could be that you never knew that you had chlamydia. Please know that much of the time there are very few symptoms, and women don't know that they've contracted it.
Okay. Now let's talk about that. That's interesting. You mentioned that a lot of women may not know that they've contracted the STD chlamydia. And then, of course, I know that gonorrhea also has some semblance for symptoms. Let's talk about that. What are some of the symptoms that you have experienced with your patients, if they've had any? What are some of the symptoms?
That is definitely challenging. With chlamydia and gonorrhea, there tend to be no symptoms. But let's look at that. So with chlamydia, women may experience a very abnormal type of discharge. Okay, so not common to what some women who eat unbalanced and intake too many refined foods or sugars would experience when they have yeast, but it'll be a different type of abnormal discharge. I would love to touch upon, for example, men when they have chlamydia. That's important for us to discuss as well. So men will also experience some symptoms. First of all, it can cause them to become sterile, and they may experience pain and swelling in the testicle. What I've noticed also is that some of my male patients in the past that have had chlamydia develop a sensitivity of the testicles, Kathy.
Okay.
So if their clothes graze them, if their partner fondles their, the testicles, then they feel very sensitive. Like they're very sensitive to the touch, almost to it being uncomfortably painful if their clothes graze them and so on. So I've noticed that sensitivity if they've had the issue of the pain and swelling. And then lastly, there are some symptoms that equally both men and women would experience with chlamydia, where it's a thick discharge with burning, painful urination. Because what happens is that chlamydia will then cause inflammation of the urethra, and it'll swell it up and cause it to be very painful when they both urinate.
Okay.
And that's a common symptom among both.
Okay. Good information shared there. I want to go on within the chapter, if I may. Here he said an estimated 2.86 million cases of chlamydia and 820,000 cases of gonorrhea occur annually within the United States. You also
Mhm.
stated that most women infected with chlamydia or gonorrhea have no symptoms, which you just discussed earlier. I want
Mhm.
to talk about if we match. Now that if we have discovered that this is what we have,
Mhm.
what are our next steps? And most importantly, how can we take care of? I think we more at conventional medicine.
My challenge with again using the conventional medicine, if they're given antibiotics and so on, then what are we doing? Then causing elevated yeast
Okay.
in the body
Okay.
with, for example, utilizing the antibiotics. Not to say that in some cases it doesn't help, but the problem is the side effects from also using that. So there are other ways of handling this.
Okay.
One very, very well-known herb that I absolutely love to use with patients for all types of venereal diseases is a Brazilian herb called pau de arco, and that's spelled Pau D apostrophe ARCO. So that herb is one that I use extensively with my patients, whether they're trying to conceive or not, if I'm just helping them to have a healthier reproductive system. If they've been scarred from having had a challenge of a sexually transmitted disease, chlamydia, gonorrhea as well, in the past, then that's one way that I'm able to help their bodies to heal from that. So the challenge of also elevated yeast bringing about constant symptoms of PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, and bringing upon pain from having had a challenge of an STD in the past. It's something that lingers. Whether they've taken medication from their conventional doctor or not for it, the symptoms that linger afterwards can continue in the inflammatory sense. And so that's when I love to bring in things like the pau de arco. If we're talking about also some underlying bacteria or viral problem, how I love to combine with that, Kathy, olive leaf extract. Amazing combination of herbs that really help the body to fight for itself these types of invaders and diseases that the body could be harboring.
Love that. I love that. Source Nation
Mhm.
Aspects with Family. You're watching live right here on Healthy Living with Dr. Julissa Hernandez. And of course, I am your host, Kathy B. And tonight's conversation is all about STD. Um, Infertility. Some of the things that we may be experiencing, may not know, Dr. Julissa is sharing. I want to go on within the conversation, Dr. Julissa, and just talk a little bit more. You mentioned herbs. I love the fact that, of course, we often think conventional medicine can take care of this, but you just mentioned a couple of the herbs that we could pretty much implement within our diet. In reference to our thoughts, are
Mhm.
basically with conventional medicine, this is going to assist us with STDs and clearing it up. But you mentioned that there are herbs we can incorporate within our diet, um,
Mhm.
make sure that we do have a healthy conception. So talk a little bit more about that. What more could we do along with the herbs in having a healthy birth? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so diet will most definitely help immensely when I'm working with patients that have had these types of underlying challenges. Most definitely, yeast forming foods are those things that I tell them that they must remove from the diet. With the big ones, let me mention, I guess, the top three. Those would be refined flours, so white breads, white pasta, and so on. Second, it would be intaking foods with high levels of sugar
Mm-hmm.
in them. That would be number two. Number three, highly processed and junk foods with a lot of artificial colorings and so on. So, of course, they do have to eat more naturally, more organic, and reduce a lot of those sugars and white flour products that are going to increase yeast. When yeast is elevated within the body, candida is elevated within the body, and you've had challenges of STDs in the past, it will bring out whatever underlying bacteria, underlying viral challenge is dormant. It brings it up to the surface. That's what a lot of people don't know. So for those, for example, that I've treated with, for example, even herpes, and I talk about herpes in depth as well in that chapter, Kathy, and I can't tell you how many women have come to me fearful of becoming pregnant because they have herpes.
Okay.
Because if they have an outbreak when they're giving birth, the child can go blind and even die. And so that's a challenge that we definitely want to work on even before I help them conceive, to help their body fight off viral presence. And yes, the body can fight off this viral presence. I know conventional medicine makes people feel like they are doomed forever to have to suffer from these sorts of challenges. Not the case. Viruses, bacteria, a virus is a virus. You've never heard anyone have the flu forever. So to think that you're going to have a virus forever within your body is inconceivable. We just need to feed the body what it's missing so that it can heal itself. So having said that, as far as diets, yes, that those are the top three things that I would say they need to reduce so that the immune system can be strong enough to fight off these sorts of challenges. It begins there as well.
Wow, great information. We actually have some Source Nation family members that are chiming in right now, Dr. Julissa,
Okay.
Into the studio, and they're wanting to have some questions answered. If I can get to those, that would be great.
Okay.
The first question
Yes.
is, what happens when a woman is about to give birth and she has herpes? Will this pass on to the baby?
That's the challenge. That if she has, for example, an outbreak, if she has herpes, what most doctors, gynecologists will do is suggest a C-section, because the fear is that when baby goes through the birth canal, if she has a sore, if she has an outbreak of any kind, then it can cause blindness in the baby and can even cause death. Um, so it is something to take into consideration. That is why I work on helping that patient to help their body fight off the viral presence before we help them conceive.
Great information, and thank you for sharing that. The next question,
Yeah.
Dr. Julissa, you mentioned a while back that herpes is just a virus. Now, does that mean you cannot get rid of it, or can you?
That's where I give you the analogy or the example. The flu, influenza, is also a virus. Do you know anyone that has had the flu forever?
No.
Varicella, chickenpox, also a virus. Do you know anyone that has ever had chickenpox forever? And so these are viral challenges. Yes, herpes is a challenge that over 85% of the population has, whether it's HSV1, oral herpes, what's considered oral herpes, or HSV2, what is labeled as genital herpes. The body needs to be fed what it is missing so that it can fight off viral presence, so the body can heal itself. We need to give it what it needs to do so. To be told that you are doomed forever, to have a challenge like that, I have proved time and time again. I was schooled by my mentors to know what we need to administer and help patients, clients intake so that we can help their bodies to fight this off. So uh, I don't believe that anything is forever like that. No, because I've already seen it within my own patients. And the proof is in blood work. When I'm working with a patient, I specifically tell them to get specific blood work done every 90 days as we're in treatment, so they know how much lower the index number of the levels of the presence of the virus is within their body, and so that they can know up to the point when they are either only showing exposure to or that they are finally negative. I need prove nothing. Their body proves it all in their blood work.
Okay, good information there. The next
Yeah.
question, so why are there still outbreaks with herpes?
Why are there still outbreaks? It depends on the person. I've treated people who only found out they had herpes because they did random blood work and they never, as far as they can recall, experienced an outbreak before.
Okay.
And so every single body is different. Now, when you are having outbreaks, your immune system is low. or you are extremely exposing yourself to high levels of stress,
Mm.
and you are compromising the body and you're feeling anxious, and so the nervous system is not able to cope. When people get outbreaks and they see them constantly in the same area, they see the same area constantly get a sore or obtain a rash, or they see bumps, or they feel a tingle, or they feel pain. I've had patients explain to me all types of symptoms that give them the alarm to let them know that they're about to have an episode or about to have an outbreak.
Okay.
And so um, the reason is that when they were exposed to the viral challenge, then most likely there was a break in the skin somewhere. And what happens is the virus embeds itself into the nerve sheath. And so think of an electric cable. You have the copper wire in the center, and then you have those layers on the. So there must have been a break somewhere in that rubber exterior portion of the wire that made the virus embed itself into it, and that's why the person tends to get an outbreak each time, normally in the same area each time. So that's what happens. What we have to do is feed the body what it's missing so that it can
Okay.
fight off the viral challenge. So that's why outbreaks continue. Most definitely, it's usually the immune system is very low.
Okay. Great information there. Love that. Now, we talked about herbs, but I always like to talk about a healthy diet. Okay. When
Mm-hmm.
we're at this state and we know that now, just as you stated, our immune system is low and there are things that we can do to build the immune system back. So let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about the foods that we need to incorporate within our diet. What are your thoughts on that?
In the process of working towards helping the body to heal itself from these sorts of challenges, yes, most definitely, diet is part of that. Now, keep in mind that herbs and roots are also food.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I discuss food, that's incorporated in there as well. I can't stress enough how anything that works as a blood purifier is going to help with this sort of a process. So,
Right.
foods that are blood purifiers naturally are foods that contain natural chlorophyll. So all greens, 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 greens. Love for you to incorporate broccoli. Love for you to incorporate more spinach and so on. And what I find is a lot of these people that tend to have these sorts of immune challenges are not very healthy eaters much of the time. They may have they may have some challenges with, for example, eating greens, eating fruits, and so on and so forth. And I would tell them to definitely stop intaking junk foods, stop intaking sugary foods and drinks that are definitely going to compromise their immune system as well, caffeinated beverages. What we know is unhealthy.
Right.
Let's be blunt with that. They need to change things up, because if the way that your lifestyle was got you to this point, then something needs to change. So most definitely just bringing in healthier foods and organic. Of course, we don't want you intaking pesticides and GMOs if I'm trying to help the body to rid itself of a viral problem. You need to baby the body as much as possible at that point. So I would say more fruits, vegetables, and definitely high greens are the top things on that list to purify the blood.
Right. And I also think too, once you take those necessary steps after learning and understanding that you still can have a healthy perception, if you were to do these things, so you're preventing. Talk to the family members, if you will. Once that conversation has taken place, once we put the steps, we implement the steps. After that, far as ongoing care for mother, daddy, and baby, what should they do? Are they still a family that could be exposed to the disease after?
Well, that's the thing. I'm first of all helping them as much as possible to be able to rid this before we work on that conception process.
Okay.
So that's the focus first and foremost. If it happens where it has happened, that I say, give me 90 days to before you have to do. Sometimes they get so excited they get pregnant in 2 months. So before that time comes along. But we're talking about being in a more balanced state, being healthier. After that, of course, I walk my my beautiful ladies through the nursing process and breastfeeding and so on. So I'm with them through that entire time, and definitely incorporate herbal therapies to keep their immune system strong, so that baby also is very nourished and so on. It's a process that I'm with them through the whole time. I'm there to make sure. I definitely don't give them or recommend them to use chemical prenatals. I do recommend a whole natural type of prenatal that does not contain aluminum, doesn't contain alum, the chemicals that most prescribed prenatals contain, which are just going to keep the body imbalanced and causing morning sickness and feeling off balance at times. Ladies do when they're pregnant and in taking those chemicals. So even in that process, I bring in those natural things to keep the immune system up, so that we can keep helping it fight any underlying dormant challenges. So um, it's a process I do with them the whole way.
Good information. Well, Dr. Julissa, again, thank you so much for coming in and giving us some great information in reference to STDs and fertility. You know, I always like to leave our show with either some encouraging word or maybe some tips and advice that we have not shared in tonight's conversation. If you wish to do so, I'd love for you to do that at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me once again, Kathy. So please know that it is possible to help your body to overcome those sorts of challenges. Know that you can feed the body what it needs to do so, to be able to fight those sorts of issues. And most definitely do everything in your power to keep that immune system up and strong. I invite you all to obtain the detailed information I've shared with everything regarding even bacterial vaginosis, to herpes, to what we've discussed tonight, just in one portion of the chlamydia and gonorrhea and so on. You can find that starting on page 88 of my new book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. I go into in-depth information there, and even the diet that is best for you to follow to help keep the immune system strong. So thank you so much for having me, Kathy, and I look forward to next week.
Awesome. Thank you again, Julissa, for being here. Of course, Source Nation, you can check Dr. Julissa out here every single Thursday at 7 p.m. on SRN Live Television. Also, go over to drjulissa.com. Again, drjulissa.com for more information. Of course, tonight's conversation was taken from her brand new book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. Guys, I'm telling you, great information is here. You can definitely reach out to her and she can answer any questions that you may have. And then, of course, join us here every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Guys, thank you so much for being here, watching us, and supporting us again. I am Kathy B. You're watching live right here on SRN Live Television. Join myself and Dr. Julissa again next week at 7 p.m. You guys be blessed. We'll see you again next week. Good night.
Blessings. Good night.
Get at me for beats, y'all.